So today we will have a number of updates, starting with the implementation of the Continued Assistance Act, the performance of our new modernized UI benefits system, MyUI Plus, an update on customer service, call center activity, which many of you have covered throughout the week as a result of implementing phase 1 of the Continued Assistance Act, and then a quick update on where we are with integrity holds, fraud, and addressing some of the payment holds within the UI benefit system. So I am going to turn it over to Joe, and then Phil and I will add in throughout Joe's remarks, and then we'll turn it over to Ryan Gedney. So Joe, if you're ready.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, everyone. Just for clarification, do we want to take questions as we go through this, or do you want to wait till we get through the entire presentation?
Let's maybe pause after each section and take questions as they come in, and certainly do our best to keep track of questions as they come in throughout the call.
Excellent. So thank you again, and everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. I'm first going to start off with a update on the federal extension of benefits in the Continued Assistance Act. With MyUI Plus deployed and ID.me in flight, we have been able to launch the first phase of programming required by the Continued Assistance Act, unemployment assistance benefits. We began rolling out phase 1 last weekend. Phase 1 allowed us to get benefits to the greatest number of people. CDLE estimates that about 230,000 could access benefits in phase 1. This number is the number of claimants who had existing balances on their pandemic emergency unemployment compensation or pandemic unemployment assistance claims prior to phase 1 rollout. PUA and PEUC claimants who had benefits available when the CARES Act expired on December 26th were in phase 1. FPUC, or the extra $300 a week, was also made available to all these claimants for any benefits for the weeks from 12/27 through 3/13 of 21. And so the first payment of regular UI claimants, including retro weeks, back to the week of 27th, if they were eligible, were paid out or can be paid out. We paid more than $216 million in benefits since Saturday. Claimants who exhausted all of their PEUC, SEB, and or PUA benefits prior to 12/27 and at any time after will be in phase 2. This is, I want to make very clear that if people were eligible in phase 1 for 1 week, 2 week, or 3 weeks and exhausted what was available to them in the CARES Act, they now will be moved into phase 2. And when we roll out phase 2, they can start claiming up to 11 weeks under the Continued Assistance Act. Want to make sure that if there is a gap in benefits, and there most likely will be because phase 2 is, we anticipate, we'll give you an update later in this, we will make them whole. If they're eligible for any week in that 11-week extension, the system will make them whole when we roll that out. We will be keeping the PUA and PUC exhausted claimants updated on next steps and in upcoming communication so that they know what to do and when to do that. Any questions on Federal Continued Assistance Act?
I have a question. This is Katie Eastman with 9 News.
Hi, Katie.
Hi. Yeah, we heard that there were some denials that happened because of the language of how the Department of Labor wrote the question about whether you or not you were unemployed because of COVID-19. Can you explain that?
Sure, and I know the new requirements with the CAA did require people to verify their unemployment situation due to the pandemic. So I'm going to let Phil take that question so he can give you the detail that you're probably needing.
Sure, Katie. We had to change some wording on some of those questions that individuals, particularly on PUA, are asked, and particularly on a weekly basis too. They have to continue to self-certify that the reason they are unemployed is as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic in order to qualify for PUA, or the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So following exactly what US Dole has asked us to write, we have that question on there. It is about right now midway through on some of the questions that parties are answering. And we have found in general, a number of people are answering that question as yes, when what the question is really asking is, I am no longer unemployed as a result of the direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are looking to move that question to a different space so it's not in the middle of all of that. We will be looking to place some bold language on parts of that language, and we are looking to put in parentheses for individuals to try to assist them that to only answer that question if none of the above apply. We are currently looking at all those individuals that have answered that question that way to see if we can't just assist them rather than having them all try to contact us to fix this issue. Many individuals will have answered more than one question there. If they've answered more than one question, it's clear that's an error. So we will look through those and look to try to remove those holds as quickly as we can. We know that it's irritating and confusing and frustrating for those individuals trying to get their payments so that they can meet their financial obligations. So we are going to do what we can to try to speed up parts of those processes for them.
Do you actually have the amount of people that were denied based on that question?
I'm still awaiting those numbers at this point in time so we can review them. So we're waiting on those from the vendor. We will follow up again with the vendor today so we can get those numbers.
Thank you. And you're not able to change the wording of that question?
We have to follow some very specific wording. U.S. Dole has been very insistent with us and very insistent with all other states that we need to follow some very particular wording on those. So it's unfortunate. We have, I think, just like other states, tried to explain to U.S. Dole. We believe that we understand what might confuse our claimants a little more and try to phase items so it doesn't confuse them. And every state that did that, Katie, ended up being told, nope, you need to rephrase these questions. It needs to say exactly this. So it's unfortunate. And so the best we can do is try to be communicating up front and see what we can do within the context of that language to try to make it a little clearer for individuals.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Joe, we will drop the exact wording of the question in the chat. And to circle back to a question from Charles, I think it's a reopen versus reapply. Phil, keep me honest on what exactly somebody would be doing from phase 1 to phase 2 once they've exhausted and now have to wait till phase 2.
Yeah, correct, Charles. They would actually be reopening that current claim as we've had it explained to us at this point in time. And as Joe mentioned, we will allow those to backdate to whenever that last week was that they were able to receive payments on whether it was PUA or PEUC to fill in that gap. But yes, this is one of those other unfortunate pieces. Phase 2 takes a little longer to roll out, unfortunately, because this is where some of those changes that Congress made and U.S. Dole made take effect on those additional 11 weeks. So there are other items that need to be programmed in on there too, just to try to get ahead and answer a question that invariably is coming.
Okay, Cher, can I move on, or are there other questions in regards to Continued Assistance Act?
I think we will probably have to circle back with this, Joe. Maybe we can move forward and then we can circle back and cover all of the questions related to, they're all tied together. So maybe we can move on to the
Okay.
update.
So maybe I'll give you some answers to some of your questions, and if not, we can circle back. Thanks, Cher. I want to give an update about the deployment and introduction of My UI Plus, really to let you know how incredibly pleased we are with the rollout, especially at a time when we have over 300,000 people that are eligible and continue to look for benefits in the system. But since deployment, we've had more than 360,000 users get into the system. We've had about over 151,000 payment requests, and we have paid more than 285 million in benefits since January 10th. The upgrade was critical to ensuring we'd administer the latest round of stimulus payments under the Continued CARES Act and implementing future programs. We know that the technology being from this decade, this century, will put us in a much better position to deploy any changes or any new stimulus programs that will be introduced with the new administration to continue to deal with the economic crisis most of the country and Colorado is still in. Without My UI Plus, future programming of federal extensions would have taken 2 to 3 times longer, and some of the provisions that we know are in the CAA would not have been possible in the old legacy system. So we continue to be excited about the possibilities we have with the new system. Moving to customer service call center, our call center has answered more than 79,000 calls since the 20th of this month, since shifting its focus to helping claimants with technical support, filing all new claims, and weekly certifications. We have had heavy volume in our call center beginning on Sunday. Again, I think this was with the deployment of phase 1. The main questions from claimants coming into our call centers, again, center around continued assistance phase eligibility, holds, and weeks being denied. I really want to stress it's so important that claimants access coloradoui.gov. The majority of their answers to the questions they may have on phase eligibility as well as holds, the ability to fill out a Google form and get that hold taken care of is all there. And if you're calling and getting frustrated because you can't get into the call center, a lot of the answers to some of these questions you can self-help yourself. If you have access to a computer, you can call a workforce center throughout Colorado and they can help you as well. But if you're getting frustrated with the call lines, we do have a release valves for you if you would take advantage of the information and the access that you have with that online tool at coloradoui.gov. As systems issues are identified this week, the vendor has been very responsive and most often deploys fixes to some of the problems we've identified overnight. Some of the problems that include removal of erroneous payments on approximately about 1,900 claims, and self-employment issues that were holding up the release of PUA benefits, and those have been resolved. To address call volume in the call center this week, we added just about over 11,500 callback appointments through the virtual agent. We are working on staffing between 500 and 550 agents. Our call center is now staffed with about 440 agents. The 100 more are in training today and tomorrow, and more are in the training for next week. So we continue to hopefully put people behind that call center number so that they can be responsive to the people who choose to use the call center or must choose the call center to answer some of their issues. We answered, just for your information, a total of about 11,000 calls on Monday through Wednesday of this week. So again, we know the call center access has been an issue, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that people have access, not only through the call center, but through the virtual agent and the website. I'm going to move on to integrity holds and unemployment fraud updates. We began to roll out ID.me. We talked about this last week on January 24th. We were able to send over 28,000 emails to claimants with program integrity holds via ID.me. Of those 28,000, we verified over 7,600 claims as legitimate. We've released and paid over 4.8 million to those legitimate claims. We've been sending about 2,000 to 5,000 a day. We are going to ramp up that to 15,000 a day to get to all the fraud holds we have. Remember, our priority in the fraud holds were those claimants who attempted to reach us either through the website or through calling us about the integrity hold. Those were our priority, and we've exhausted that list. That was the 28,000. Now we're moving to the people we have, or the claims we have, that are on fraud hold, and these are about 1 million, to give them the chance to verify their identity. We are up to date on sending the reported integrity holds on those who have contacted us. I said that earlier. Claimants who refuse the identity verification process we put in place and do not complete the entire process, I need to remind you that those holds will remain in place. They do need to go through this verification process in order for us to release the program integrity hold. Another issue I want to talk about is correcting claims for 1099-Gs. Again, we are in the process. If anyone received a 1099, unemployment benefits are, again, taxable income. If you receive that from a fraudulent claim, there's a form online to fill out. We are in the process of zeroing out those claims, and we'll resend those forms to these people. So need to let you know that that does take a process. We'd like you to do that, and we're getting those zeroed out 1099s out as quickly as possible. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Cher and Phil for some other updates and follow-ups, and then we can go into questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Let's go back and start at the top. Let's see, I think we missed, okay, Eric has a question around continued efforts to make things smoother with phone lines. I think Joe adequately addressed that. The key here is with the deployment of phase one, had a surge of volume. We were receiving as many call attempts in a day as we had received in the few weeks prior. Certainly a lot of questions around phase one. All of these programs are incredibly complicated to program into the system, number one, from a technology perspective, and of course, even more confusing for claimants given the complexity of the programs and the rollouts. So we are hoping to, again, continue to adjust call center staffing. We sent an email out last night to about 230,000 claimants, pointing them to new FAQs on the website. We're changing our front-end messaging on the call center to better direct claimants to additional resources versus having to speak to an agent, and certainly expanding callback access throughout the week as times become available. Phil, anything to add on that front?
I think we're good on that one.
Let's see here. So how many fraud flags have been resolved through ID.me? I thought that Joe mentioned this. Since deploying ID.me, we've sent out 28,000 emails. Of those, about 6,800, I believe, maybe a little bit more than that as of today, have completed the verification process, releasing a total of $4.8 million. Our goal was to address those that had contacted the call center with a program integrity hold, and then work through the list of holds that have been accumulating even prior to MyUI Plus. Again, important to note here that in addition to somebody calling into the call center who has a program integrity hold, they can also now complete a form online as an alternate way to have somebody log that hold and input it into the ID.me workflow.
And Claire or Cher, can I just double check and make sure that I heard Joe right and say it was 1 million claims that were flagged as possible fraud?
It's just over 1 million since the beginning of COVID. So that would include your PUA claims that have been flagged as fraud, and also the regular UI claims, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Let's see. No, Tamara, I think we have the two numbers. We have the PUA call center, which now, as we've reported, is taking all MyUI Plus related questions and attempting to address phase one, phase two rollout. We still have the 9,000 number. That does direct a claimant to the virtual agent solution by phone, or has the ability to request a callback. We do hope that most questions can be resolved through the PUA call center versus having to request a callback, because right now we are looking at callback dates, I think, to about February 19th. And so when we're able to assist those claimants through the PUA call center, the third-party call center, that is our preference versus directing them to request a callback. But the 3189000 is still the alternate UI call center number.
Right. You want me to get Charles' question here, Cher?
Sure.
A couple more. So Charles is asking, just for those who can't see it, got a call from someone who got a 1099 but didn't apply for UI. He's asking if he should wait to file his taxes until we send a revised 1099, or ignoring it when filing with the IRS, which he wants to do. He needs to wait until he receives the corrected 1099, Charles. I am assuming that he has already reported to us online that he's received this 1099 in error, and those new corrected 1099s should be going out here shortly. I believe they started going out here this week. So he should be receiving that shortly to be able to file that with his taxes. But yes, he definitely wants to wait until he has the corrected one.
Hey, Phil, don't want to argue with you here, but the IRS is recommending that people only file taxes with income they actually received. and basically telling them to go ahead and file their income tax without that corrected 1099-G, taking out that income, but do request the 1099-G in case they ever would get audited. So, we'll continue to update you on what the IRS is recommending people do. I know that there's a drag on when we can get that zeroed out form, but we are doing our best to get those out as quickly as possible. So if that changes, we will let you know.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Joe. Katie, I can grab Katie Easton as one. Are you aware of people on regular UI still having difficulty receiving their benefits after they were put into the new system? Katie, yes, there would be some individuals who hadn't been experiencing problems before who now do. Part of that was, as we've described over prior weeks, fraud holds that we did not have the capability of putting in efficiently in our old state benefits system. We had seen increased activity that appeared to be fraudulent in nature in our state system the last several weeks before we moved over to the new system. So therefore, when individuals moved into that new system, those fraud holds were applied to all claims. So if a claim had particular characteristics that meets that bill, there may be fraud holds on those claims, otherwise known as integrity holds, that then we would have those individuals ultimately go through ID.me to try to clear those holds. There were some other issues that initially came over that began holding up payment. It was a new system, and we've had to make some adjustments so that the new system would act similar to our old system. In other words, not hold up some of those payments while we were continuing to process their claim in accordance with the extended executive order from Governor Polis. I guess I can try to hit Blair Miller's question too, Cher. So Blair wants to know, what issues are we aware of with MyUI Plus on mobile browsers and various web browsers? There are some, Blair. For instance, the question that we discussed earlier with Katie on the call, on a PC, that question after when you answer it will generally, unless you have blocked them, provide a pop-up asking if you're certain that that's how you want to ask. It doesn't occur on the mobile version of the app, reminding people, are you really sure that you want to answer this way? We know obviously it looks different on the mobile app. So this is a good point to remind some people who are probably struggling, saying, how come I can't reopen my claim? Remembering we had the PUA individuals were required to file a brand new state claim. When they look on their system, they may actually still be looking at that state claim, so they do not see the reopen link in the left-hand navigation. And what they need to do is click change claim and find their PUA claim, at which point they would see that reopen link in order to go in and reopen it on a PC. On the mobile, they're going to have to use the hamburger menu to find the reopen link. And again, make sure they are changing to make sure they're on the correct claim. So if they're currently viewing their state claim that they filed that isn't worth anything, they need to go to change claim through the hamburger menu and get on the new claim, and then they will find the reopen link there.
Phil, I can answer Tamara's question.
Sure.
The integrity hold form, I did just review that. There's no indication that it's claim specific. So if you're hearing from folks that believe it's confusing or the language isn't clear, Tamara, just let us know. But I did just review it, and there's no indication that it is only for PUA claimants.
I can take a stab here at Megan's question, Cher. So I understand ID.me is the way to resolve fraud flags, but are we hearing from people specifically saying they don't feel comfortable using the service? I haven't seen anything broadly about individuals being uncomfortable using the service. It wouldn't surprise me, Megan, if there are individuals out there that would not be comfortable using the service. If they are on a PUA claim and they want to continue to receive PUA benefits, they are going to have to go through that system in order to have their identity verified. This is one of those other changes or additions that Congress created within the extension again that actually requires that identity verification. We, given what we have also seen related to fraud across the platform, are going to use ID.me across our entire platform, whether it's PUA, PEUC, a regular state UI claim, or if we had SEB in place. At some point, all individuals will be required to go through it to establish they are who they say they are. It's a means by which we can try to best protect especially when it comes to state benefits, best protect individuals' data, and more importantly, to protect employers related to the premiums that they ultimately pay. On the state side, whenever you have a fraudulent claim, that's ultimately costing employers in taxes. So we have a fiduciary responsibility to those employers to do what we can to prevent all of that fraud.
Charles, I am seeing what data we can give you on the 1099 complaint form. So we'll circle back with you before the end of the call if we have some data. And we dropped the language of the question on no longer unemployed as a result of the above COVID-related issues into the chat. I do believe that question will be amended this weekend, so keep you updated on that. Phil, this is, I think, from somebody in one of our workforce centers is asking the question about conversion from Cubs to MyUI Plus. I think, Michael, your suggestion to call the call center is probably the best.
I would agree, Michael. That's their best bet.
Let's see. So we had kind of two related questions about types of holds, and I think it's a good point for us to clarify. There are a number of reasons why there may be a hold on a claim, not just program integrity. Certainly, those are the ones that we want to direct folks through ID.me to get an immediate resolution because they're inadvertently caught up in a fraud hold. Phil, do you want to just speak briefly about other types of holds?
Sure. So yeah, we should not assume that every hold on a claim that's preventing payment is a fraud hold or an integrity hold. While we've certainly placed a lot of integrity holds out there, right, as we've mentioned before, there's over 1 million claims out there we believe to be fraudulent with holds on them. There's also 1 million valid claims out there. But there are various other reasons for holds, Tamara, and some of it depends on how somebody may have answered a question when they filed a weekly certification that may indicate that they're not able and available for work. Those need to be reviewed. If determined someone's not able and available for all suitable work, then there would be a hold or a denial on that claim, right? There could be other holds because it sets an issue and we need to process that particular issue before determining whether somebody's eligible for unemployment insurance benefits for that week. As an example, Tamara, over on the PUA application, one of the reasons individuals are on PUA is because they are self-employed. There is also a question that asks about whether you are self-employed or engaged in self-employment activities. And generally when that is answered yes, that would set an issue that prevents payment or holds up payment. Obviously, it makes no sense on the PUA side that that's holding up payment because that's the very reason those individuals have a PUA claim. So those are also ones, Tamara, we are continuing to work on to be able to void out or remove those issues to remove those payment holds.
Let's see. Okay, I think we're to Liz's question about having issues accessing PUA. Could be a variety of reasons, Liz. It could be perhaps they are not eligible for phase 1 rollout, meaning they've exhausted all available benefits. It could be that they have an integrity hold, or it could be one of the issues that Phil mentioned. I think the best course of action is to contact the call center. Again, with that, we are hoping to increase access to the call center based on the volume we've seen coming in this week through additional staff and extended hours, which we hope to announce later today. Phil, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll jump in just a little, Liz, because some of these individuals may be ones who see a balance on their claim and say, well, the information I received from the department said if I have a balance on my claim, I'll qualify for phase 1. Some of those individuals with a balance on their claim are not actually in phase 1. Those would be individuals who perhaps were in the PUA system early on when we did not have the ability to pay PEUC yet. And then when SEB was in place, they were moved into the state system to file their SEB. And then after SEB ended, they were moved back over to the PUA system. Those ones require some additional programming to make sure everything comes in line with the manner in which the benefits should have all paid. And so some of those individuals seeing a balance on there may actually be in a later phase and not in phase 1. Those individuals, the way they might understand that is, one, they have gone in and they filed their regular state claim that isn't worth anything. And then the very next day or 24 hours later, after batches run, they're looking on that PUA claim and there is no reopen link. That would be a good clue for those individuals that are in a later phase.
I can address your question, Charles. I'll just share, which I think we shared out before. When we deployed MyUI Plus on Sunday, January 10th at about 6:30 a.m., we were able to monitor where traffic was coming from and trying to get into the application. We actually saw 36 users in Nigeria attempting to access the system, which we denied thanks to the technology that we've been able to put into place. So yes, the Nigerian fraud rings have gained national attention. We think that MyUI Plus, the integrity triggers and some of the other solutions put into place are helping that on the front end before the fraudsters get into the system.
I'll take Tamara's question here. So Tamara wants to know, did you find anything out about the people seeing overpayments on their account again or for the first time? So I'm going to address it for the individuals seeing overpayments on their account again who had been in PUA, Tamara. We had written off a number of overpayments early on, again, related to the initial claimant affidavit form that we found to be confusing to individuals. Those were written off, and for some reason, when part of this processing occurred, on moving and preparing for phase one, all of a sudden those overpayments showed up again. Last night, the vendor removed over 1,900 of those type of overpayments for individuals. That is not to say that every overpayment that was previously written off was within that group. I believe just anecdotally, Tamara, I am aware of a couple of claims that I looked at today that I believe should have been within that group. And so we will obviously need to continue to search and see who got missed beyond that first group of 1,900.
Phil, I know we do have some opinions about the complicated guidance and the legislation that was given to us by the federal government. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I will try to be nice here, right? There are very, very specific requirements that have to be followed in statute. So US Dole simply wants to ensure that every state and every claimant are following that statutorily to a T. And so US Dole becomes concerned when states make adjustments to that language, that individuals may read more into that language than what really exists statutorily. So it is more, Blair, about having all states come into compliance and make sure that we are all paying the individuals we are supposed to be paying. I think we would all love it if perhaps at a US Dole, some of the legalese was taken out of some of the required questions, understanding that most people read that stuff, they are confused, they haven't participated in this system before, and so they are uncertain of what they are answering. So again, it's nothing we have not expressed or that I have not expressed to US Dole about the need to continue to try to simplify that language and have that language mean exactly the same thing as what it does within the statute.
So I do want to get to Ryan, even though I know his report out will be fairly lean. But let's go ahead and pause and just turn it over to Ryan and we can circle back with questions.
Thanks, Cher. I just have a couple, as Cher mentioned, just a couple data points for y'all today. And a lot of this is baked into the weekly press release, if you haven't already seen that. We're reporting on a fraud adjusted basis, 10,989 regular UI initial claims for the week ending January 30th. Continued claims for the week ending the 23rd at a little over 70,000. For the week ending the 30th, regular UI payments are around 20 million, and that's consistent with the 2 weeks prior, around 23 to 20 million over the 2 weeks prior. We have seen a gradual decline in initial claims over the past few weeks. Again, I'll caution that these are kind of an ad hoc fraud adjustment. They are subject to revision. I don't have a timeline for those revisions, but just know that these data are subject to change. I should definitely have a lot more data next week, and that will reflect phase one rollouts. So we should hopefully have PUA and PUC continue claim data, possibly some initial claims data for PUA. Again, a lot of those those will be reopens. And also a ton of benefits data as well, benefits paid for FPUC, $300 per week, and PUC and PUA. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but I'll kick it back over to Cher.
This one might be for you, Ryan.
Yeah, Rich. So the federal release, again, I could send you I sent an explanation on the differences between what we release and what's released on the federal release. But essentially, that's based off of a report that we sent on Monday. And there are some definitional differences within that report. For the feds to be able to populate their weekly press release, they use that Monday data to inform that it's what's called an advanced claim or initial claim count. And so you'll see that will be replaced next week with what we're reporting today. So that just explains the differences, but I could send you an explanation of that, Rich.
Other questions? I did want to note that last week we added some content to our website, and I believe it's under Manage Your Claim, in terms of what a claimant may be seen with a hold within MyUI Plus. And we added some screenshots to help better understand what the type of hold is, including clearly highlighting where it would tell you you have a program integrity hold. So maybe Jessica, if you can drop that page into the chat. That, in addition to the new Google form that we've added, we hope will help folks navigate these program integrity holds specifically. Again, not all types of holds, but specifically when they have an indication in MyUI Plus that they have a program integrity hold. Phase 2 rollout ballpark question of the day. We still don't have a firm date for that, Joe and Tamara, with an ETA. But certainly we'll be following up with you. We hope, we had hoped by the end of the month. And so we will certainly circle back with everyone when we have a firm date on that. I think we addressed this, Phil. How quickly are fraud forms being addressed? And I'm just wondering if you mean, Lindsay, those who've been a victim of fraud or those who have program integrity holds. But we can answer both. So if you receive a 1099, a Relia card, or any other communication from the department, and you did not file for unemployment, you should complete the fraud form on the website. I think at last count we had just over 80,000 forms submitted by victims of identity theft that resulted in UI fraud. So we don't actually have the capacity to have an agent follow up with each individual victim. However, we're working on a number of follow-ups to ensure the victim that the claim has been closed, number one, and give them appropriate documentation for use with credit reporting agencies when they flag their credit reports with potentially fraudulent activity. Those individuals will be getting an official communication from the department. We're implementing that as a workflow into the system so that when you submit the fraud form, not only does it confirm via email that we got your form, we will also send you an official communication from the department that can be used with credit reporting agencies. So in terms of the workflow for addressing the fraud form, it's fairly quick, and we're working on some automated solutions to that as well, that once the fraud form is completed within a, I don't know, Phil, 24, 48 hour time frame, the goal is that claim is shut down. So we are looking at robotic automation to address some of those workflows. In terms of if you have a program integrity hold on your claim, otherwise known as a fraud hold, the timeline for releasing those, as Joe mentioned, we've gone through nearly all of the individuals who have proactively contacted us with program integrity holds. And each day our plan is to push through those claimants through the ID.me solution and get those holds released. Phil, anything else to say?
So a couple of things here, Lindsay. So again, we have automated part of those processes with the form early on, right? In the early phases of it, it was a highly manual process. So that automation that currently exists, although again, we want to continue to improve on that and speed up the processes, goes through to shut down those claims. This is a good reminder, though, at this point, that when we mean shut down a claim, we mean that we are going to stop it from paying unemployment benefits. The system right now, still after one of those claims is filed, is going to generate several kind of documents or correspondences for parties. And that includes individuals who are contacting saying, I received a PIN number, I received a Reliat card. These are all processes that occur immediately after a claim is filed. So we do still need to work on making sure we are providing somebody as soon as we have that information and we have closed down the claim to be more proactive and send them some type of communication so that we can avoid a couple of things. One is communication or confusion among parties out there who, I reported this the other day, and now I have a Reliat card. I must need to report it again. That answer is no. And actually, parties who end up reporting it 3 or 4 times, understandably so, because we haven't done our best on communicating with them up to this point in time, end up creating yet more work that ends up becoming duplicative and obviously impacts staff time to get to the other actual fraud holds that we need to address. So just a quick reminder, and again, our understanding, we need to continue to improve on our communication with these parties, that if you've reported it once, you do not need to report it for every form that you receive. Unless, of course, for some reason now it's a form for somebody else's name and not yours. But again, once you've received it once, we will get the holds placed on there.
Charles, I don't yet have data. I just flagged that for my team, so I'll follow up with you on that data point. We'll include that in the press call follow-up talking points as well. Tamara, I said we hope by the end of the month, but we have no firm date right now for rollout phase 2. Other questions? Okay, before we close, Ryan, do you just want to speak a little bit about the benchmarking process that we'll be going through and the next employment situation release, just to have a reminder on those?
Sure. So we are currently, and this is in regard to the employment situation, the job numbers, the unemployment rate. We're going through our annual benchmarking process where we're going to revise data based on administrative data that we have. We're going to revise data for 2020 and some prior years. That data will be released in the middle of March. That will coincide with the with our release for January. So on March, let me just get the date. Monday, March 15th, we'll release January's data as well as our benchmark data. So given the nature of the pandemic and volatile economy, we could see some rather large revisions. But again, that data will come out on Monday, March 15th. And then we're actually going to have another press release on Friday the 26th, Friday the 26th, and that will be the February employment situation. So no press release, employment situation press release this month, but we're going to have 2 next month.
Okay. Going once, going twice? We have another question from our one of our Workforce Center staff.
Yeah, Michael, there's obviously a backlog in that area related to monetary redeterminations. We did automate part of that process to help create workflow for staff. This is another one of those areas where a lot of additional work was created, understandably so, by parties who would fax in that documentation one time. They didn't see anything right away within a week or two, so they would fax it in again, mail it in, and so it would come in 3 or 4 times. And ultimately what that did was that was creating 3 or 4 work items that had to be reviewed by staff to get together to try to assess and make those changes on a claim. So we are hoping to get caught up. I know it is not a perfect answer, Michael, but we continue to try to improve in that space too with what we can actually automate in that arena to assist claimants. However, the vast majority of those still need to be reviewed by a human. and there is an extremely large number of those requests.
Tamara, Phil does have a new title, Acting Director of the Unemployment Insurance Division. Anything else? Okay, well, we will send out the Zoom recording notes, Charles answers to your questions, and after today's call, we will go ahead and have a press call next Thursday. So look for that media advisory on Wednesday and let us know if you have any follow-ups today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.